Hey folks, I wanted to do a video talking about what I carry in my camera bag that's not cameras and lenses, because it's a lot. We say, what can go wrong on a photo shoot? Everything. Okay, so you got to kind of be prepared, especially if you're doing long days, you're shooting weddings or events. It's a good idea to try and think ahead and be ready for any eventuality. And based on my experience, these are just some of the things that I carry in my bag. All right. First of all, though, the bag I use is a Think Tank Retrospective 30. I liked it because it looks like a diaper bag. Doesn't look like a camera bag. So your chances of theft go down if it doesn't look like, hey, I've got thousands and thousands of dollars in cameras and lenses here for you to steal, right? So that's why I like that bag. Anyway, so one of the first things that I think you should always have in your bag, good old ibuprofen, Advil, especially if you're shooting long days. Your feet, your back, your shoulders can hurt. I take this proactively, especially before a long wedding day, because I know my feet are going to ache. I know my back is going to ache. So this is something that I always carry with me. Another thing, especially if you're shooting consecutive events on consecutive days, and you're eating wedding food, and you don't know if your stomach's going to be upset, have some of these because you don't have time to deal with it, right? So that's a good thing to always carry in your bag and always have ready to go. I get allergies sometimes if I'm shooting outdoor events in spring or the fall. This is Flonase, and I think it's good to have just in case your allergies are bugging you. You can use that, and that's just over the counter that you can have. Another thing, I've been really lucky at events. The client always feeds my assistant and me, and in fact, they usually insist that we sit down and eat. But I've heard horror stories about how that's not always the case, and there have been a couple of times where they asked us to eat and I just didn't have time. So some sort of food, something. I use these RX bars. I always have a couple of them in my bag so I can feed my assistant too, if we need to, because you just don't know. And especially on a wedding, you're on your feet for 12 hours. If you don't eat, you're gonna be hurting by the end of it. You're definitely not going to be performing at your best. So even a Snickers bar is better than nothing, right? Great. So that's kind of medicines. Some more things I carry. Sinus pills. You get a sinus headache, that's really going to suck, right? So I always have a few of those in there. Also, photography is working with people. It's talking to people, right? You're doing that all the time. Make sure your breath's okay. You don't want to be like, hi, Mr. Halitosis while you're talking to people. So have some breath mints at some point handy. I think that's good. Other things that aren't necessarily medicine, these Zeiss lens wipes, you can get a box of these for cheap, like in the Walmart optometry section, and they're fantastic. They really do a nice job. You get some kind of crud or fingerprints on your lens and you want to clean it off real quick. I recommend those Zeiss wipes. Some other things, basic tools you should have. I always carry like a multi-tool. I keep this head on this one because it's the main adjustment to put L plates on the bottom of the camera, and it also is the size for my tripod ball head to tighten it down on the ball head because it loosens up. Sometimes I always keep like a bunch of random L plates for the tripod too, just in case. I don't know what's going to go on with that. I've never had to use those on an emergency basis, but you never know. What else do I have in here? That's. I think I've got it all covered. Everything that I wanted to talk about with regards to that. The big thing is ibuprofen, tummy meds, allergy meds, a little bit of food. Those are critical, and a basic tool set is always a good idea. Speaking of the basic tool set, other things that I always put in my bag and I always have with me. This is a rain sleeve for your cameras. I didn't start carrying these until recently. I got caught in a rain wedding and I didn't have anything for my cameras. And so I was wearing a sport coat and I tried to cover it up, and the cameras were fine, but I was really nervous that I was going to ruin my cameras. And these rain sleeves are cheap. I think they're like $7 or $8. And it's good insurance to keep your cameras safe. I always take a flashlight. Sometimes you're working in the dark. It's just better to have this so that you can see what you're doing when you're setting things up. I always carry a multi-tool too. This is a Leatherman tool, surprisingly handy, especially the pliers, good to have. Watch if you're flying though, because it's got a knife blade in it, and you don't want an unpleasant interaction with TSA because you had that Leatherman tool if you're flying with your gear. So just be careful with that. Make sure you put that in your checked luggage. Microfiber claws, they come with everything. I keep them all over the place because they can be handy, right? I think that's gonna about do it. Oh yeah, it's the times we live in. Extra mask. I've got these things everywhere. It's good to have for now. If you want to save your bride, save your wedding, keep some of these. Shout makes these Shout wipes or Tide wipes or whatever. It's just you can quickly get stains off of things, get dirt off of things. These are great to be able to whip out, especially, you know, your bride got something on her dress and she's freaking out. Yeah, here you go. You're ready, right? You can come in clutch for your bride that way. And funny story, I was shooting one a couple of months ago and I pulled one out. She got something small on her dress and I pulled one of these out. It was all dried out and old. That was kind of embarrassing, and it turned out okay, but still, it's good to keep some of these around. And I bought new ones after that wedding because I felt bad about pulling it out. And she thought everything was okay, and then it wasn't. But anyway, it turned out fine for her, so everything was all right. Okay, you know what? I'm going to do a separate video because I've got like extra batteries and cards, and we'll talk about details on that, but it's a lot. So I'm going to do a separate video on that, okay? So thanks for watching. It's just stuff that I carry in my bag that doesn't have anything to do with photography.